my blessings, all my blessings, all my blessings, all my blessings. I need my blessings every penny. Daily count.
Welcome to the Michael Welch podcast. Took about a month-long sabbatical here for a number of different reasons, but back for the NCAA tournament here in this edition of the Welch Bros podcast. Hi, Elliot.
Hello.
I know you're watching. Howard on the side there.
It's terrible basketball.
It is terrible basketball. But we thought we'd do a little bracket action today. Braction, if you will. Got a few obviously there's tons of coverage for the tournament. Not surprising, of course, to see Houston, Purdue, and UConn in there as our number ones after they've been very productive this season. Of course, North Carolina snuck in there as the other number one, which is a little surprising. Speculation that possibly Tennessee would make it in there. Of course, they got shelled out of the SEC championship game, conference tournament. There we go. They didn't even make it the championship game. And Iowa State had a chance to possibly make it as well. Some of the seeding seems to be all over the place, quite frankly. Michigan State. One of my pet peeves is like Iowa State's punished for not playing a difficult conference schedule, right? That's one of the reasons why they didn't have a shot at the number one seed, supposedly. Yeah, Michigan State schedules very difficultly and then doesn't win like any games. So it's like, very interesting. I don't know. That's one point I have.
Feels like they do that every year. Like, yeah, you can play a really hard schedule and you're rewarded whether you win or lose those games, but only if you're like a blue blood.
Yeah. So catch 22 there. The breakdown, Big 12 got 8 teams. SEC got 8. Big 12 power ranked is basically the best conference. SEC got same number there. Big 10 has 6. Mountain West has 6. ACC has 5. Pac-12 has 4 teams. Big East only got 3. Another point of contention for a lot of folks was that there were like half the conference was basically projected to be in at one point, and a whole bunch of teams were bounced out. We'll get to that in 1 second. American got 2. Atlantic 10 got 2, and the West Coast Conference got 2 as well, as St. Mary slipped there with Gonzaga. Now, the other note I wanted to make here, besides kind of putting the metrics in place for what teams generally make the champion, no surprise there that the number one seeds are going to make that, is I want to touch on the NIT briefly. A number of articles have come out about how the NIT is dying and no one wants to go anymore. I know I was talking to you yesterday about how Oklahoma and Pitt, who just missed out on the tournament, turned down NIT offers. That's now expanded to Seton Hall, St. John's, Indiana State. Was it Indiana State? Sorry, I got my teams that didn't make the tournament mixed up with teams that turned down NIT bids. But it's an expansive list of teams. St. John's did turn down an NIT bid. Expansive number of teams that turned down an NIT bid. And I don't like that. It seems like you should be able to. You should play in the NIT. It seems to me. I think Tom Crean on one of the stations, I don't remember if he's on CBS or ESPN or what the hell it is now, what was going off on how important it is to play in the tournaments and participate with your kids. And I think I think you should as well. One of the points that was made is that the transfer portal is opening up right now. And, if those kids want to move to other colleges with their season technically done, they should be able to do so. There's been at least some translation previously to teams that have won or made deep runs in the NIT the next year, make the tournament and have had some success. I just think it's important to play in the NCAA tournament, and just think it's kind of odd to have, like, especially like Rick Pitino, figurehead, be like, no, we're just not going to play in the NIT. I think it's unfortunate, especially for seniors or guys who may not play again on that team, to just have their season end because they didn't make the tournament NCAA tournament and not have a chance to play in the NIT. I think that's kind of crummy. Any thoughts on that?
A little sassy. Yeah, I mean, I think it does speak to the transfer portal age and the NIL stuff, right? Where like, people are kind of chasing the money and you're not seeing those teams be built over time of players that come back and get experience playing in tournaments, playing together, and then adding the missing pieces, right? You're just not seeing that. And I think we're going to continue to see that. It is unfortunate, and I do think the NIT has always been a disappointment, but at least you still get to see your team play in the tournament too. So I think for fans as well, it's pretty disappointing that it's your team doesn't make the NCAA tournament, and that's the last you'll ever see of that team ever play together.
Yeah. I mean, Kentucky still went a few years ago. It's one of the last real powerhouses that you may have been surprised went. I don't think they had many fans turn out. But again, we're not talking about Kentucky. We're talking about like Pitt and Oklahoma and poor Indiana State that was left out. So,
yeah.
Some of the metrics that help decide who wins the NCAA tournament. Of course, Ken Palm's been around for 25 years, and they track Ken Pomeroy there tracks a lot of stuff. But in his data, generally you're in the top 20 of offensive and defensive adjusted efficiency. I say generally because only twice has a team not met one of those metrics. There's the UConn team that made a run as a 7th seed years back with Shabazz Napier that was like 39th. I think they were 39th in offense. And then the Baylor team that won the national championship a few years back was like a 10th of a point off in defensive adjusted efficiency and like 21st in defense. So that
was a fun team to watch, but that was like 4 guards, right? Like,
yeah, yep.
There's no wonder they didn't have the defensive efficiency numbers.
Mm-hmm. They also had like a key player injured too, I believe, during that run. So I think they actually could have been even a better team than the one that absolutely destroyed Gonzaga in the national championship game.
That was a fun team to watch.
That was. But as far as teams that meet those metrics, UConn, number 1 in offense, number 11 in defense, number 1 seed, of course. Houston, 17 in offense, number 2 in defense. Arizona has been there all year. They're a 2 seed, 8 in offense, 12 in defense. Just a quick point on that. They're constantly. They lost a number of games on the road to bad teams. And I realize there's been chaos for especially top 10 teams on the road against unranked teams this year. It's an astronomical number of, they had a losing record by a mile. For about halfway through the season, they had like a 40% win percentage. Top 10 teams did on the road against unranked teams. It was wild. And they came out ahead, I believe. But Arizona was at least responsible for like 3 of those. It was pretty crazy. But I just want to note that UConn this year also got their first win against the top 25 team on the road this season in 10 years. And that's an insane stat because they've won 2 national championships since then.
Yeah, that is nuts.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
So perhaps we just keep in mind that the tournament's on neutral site.
Yeah, well, and I think maybe we can talk about Arizona later, but Arizona's going to go as far as Caleb Love will take them. But, I've saw a lot of those games, and there just isn't a lot of dominant teams again this year, right? I think UConn is easily far and away the best team in the field. I would take UConn over the field this year. And yet they have dropped some games by like 20 points, right? Like they have had games where they're just not that team. And yet they still look like the most dominant, most complete team there is.
Yep. Yeah. Auburn's the other one, 4 seed Auburn that meets those metrics. 10 in offense, 4 in defense. They're going to be nitpicked. They already are getting nitpicked as a team that just is fraudulent. They've still been in the top 20 and both in the metrics for a good chunk of the year, which is kind of amazing.
I just don't like them. I just don't want them to be good. So
sure, They did win the SEC conference tournament, and they did place. They didn't win. Who won the SEC? They're up there in the SEC. Is the
Probably
point.
Alabama. Or
Yeah,
Kentucky.
was it? It was. I think it was. Maybe it was a four. I think it was a. I think Alabama won. It was like a 4-way tie for second. I know that. I think Tennessee won. And it was like a 4-way tie for second place. I think it was like Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn. It was something crazy.
Forgot about Tennessee. Talk about frauds.
I don't like Tennessee this year. I like them. But those are the 4 that meet the metric exactly. And the ones that are just kind of outside that, Purdue's 4th in offense, 21st in defense, so technically still very much in the mix there. Ironically, Marquette is 21st in offense and 19th in defense as a 2 seed. And then North Carolina's 24th in offense and 5th in defense. And again, there are a lot of quabbles over whether they should be number 1 seed as well. There are a couple others that are just outside, but they don't meet a couple other metrics. That's Creighton, 13 in offense, 24 defense, and Duke, who's 7 in offense, 26th in defense, and have some of their own problems there. UConn, favorite to win it, obviously. Houston, not too far behind. Purdue was about even odds last I checked, and North Carolina distant behind them as far as the number 1 seeds. I believe like Arizona is actually 4th best odds right now.
That's too high.
Yeah. Well, like you said, open field. Maybe we'll see another sneaker. Maybe you'll see like a 6 seed win it this year.
I mean, their path is not difficult. Looking at this bracket that it's up here: Long Beach, Dayton or Nevada, Baylor. Like you scrolled away from it, but thank you. They don't. Their path is not very difficult.
No, certainly one of the easier brackets, I would say, for sure. Just of note as well, the last 10 number 1 overall seeds, because we're talking about how good UConn has been this year, and they lost at least 3 starters and some production off their bench from the championship team that won it all last year. But the last 9, 9, 10. So 2014, Florida Gators lost in the Final Four. The 2015 Kentucky Wildcats lost in the Final Four, so at least they advanced quite a ways. 2016 Kansas lost in the Elite 8. 2017 Villanova lost in the second round. Virginia, of course, lost in the first round in 18. In 19, Duke, of course, lost in the Elite 8 there, Zion Williams. 2021, Gonzaga, national championship loss. 22, Gonzaga, Sweet 16 loss. And 23, Alabama, Sweet 16 loss. It's still weird to think that just last year, Alabama was the number 1 overall seed. But they're dominant last year. Defense not as good this year. All the auto bids, 32 conferences. Of course, that's a far cry from the 10 we have in football. The number 1 seeds only won 11 of the 32 conferences. So we had some bid stealers in there. We already touched on the NIT and some of the teams that didn't make it. So we have like NC State, Yale. Drake could have gotten an at-large bid, but they got the auto bid. So a few teams that would have been in here, of course, per usual, that would not have been in otherwise. Any thoughts? Or are we getting to the bracket?
No, I think we should just go to the bracket. I'll have more thoughts there.
Okay. I was thinking we just kind of go through a region rather than go through like all the first round, all the second round.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Do you want to start with UConn, or do you want to start on an easier section?
Yeah, let's just start in a different section.
Okay. All right. Houston and the Longwood Lancers. The Longwood Lancers, of course, and they were in last year, I do believe. Nice little squad there. Houston Cougars, as we know, play very, very slow basketball. They brought in LJ Cryer this year from Baylor. They had a little offensive punch for them. They have a couple injuries. They're a little bit shallow on the depth because they have a couple guys out. But still, the Houston Cougars, one of the best defenses in the entire country. Of course, they got thumped by the Iowa State Cyclones in their conference championship. But everyone's picking them to go past Longwood. I think we're safe to do that.
Yeah, so I've watched a fair amount of Houston really for a couple of years now, and the big difference I see this year is that they have some guys that can go get their own. They have an offense that I think is what you need to win a championship. The defense, it reminds me, it's very similar in my mind from watching, especially in their tournament, of VCU, vintage VCU playing the Havoc defense with Shaka Smart, where it's really aggressive. It's not like they run a full court press the whole time, but it's really aggressive, lockdown, ball denial. Everything is contested, and it feels like you're, trying to bench 300 pounds every time you got to shoot the ball. It's really, really aggressive, and I think that the officiating in the tournament is going to hurt them. But we'll see. I don't think they'll win it all. I think they'll make it quite a ways here, just based on their defense and just really kind of annoying and lulling teams to sleep and turnovers, and then having a pretty efficient offense. Do you have their offensive efficiency numbers there?
I will grab it here. Give me just 1 second. But yeah, I mean, I think they're the only team that stayed in the top 20 in both for the entire year as far as offensive and defensive efficiency. The non-conference schedule wasn't very difficult. No one's made a note of that at all, I will say, and all the discussions as far as how hard the schedule is. Of course, they're kind of giving, they won the Big 12, of course. So something to be said for that, which was regarded as the best conference in the country.
Yeah, I mean, the conference was great, and they play quite a wide range variety of teams. I watched them play TCU a couple times, right? And those were, again, really close physical games. TCU has a pretty good defense, and I think normally, or maybe in previous years, Houston would really struggle having players, be able to win that opening game of the tournament against TCU, but they were able to go and get buckets and really kind of get their redemption there from their earlier loss to TCU earlier in the season.
One of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, second in offensive rebounding percentage. They hold opponents to less than 44% effective field goal percentage. 22nd in adjusted offensive efficiency. Is that right? Yeah, I guess that's where are they outside the top 20? They might have slipped. Hang on, let me see here. I'm on the wrong year.
That'll do it.
I have a bookmark for 2020. I was like, these numbers look a little low. Here we go. All right. Offensive efficiency, 17th in the country. They don't turn the ball over. Still a really good offensive rebounding team. Effective field goal percentage is actually not quite as good. But they play at such a slow pace that second chance opportunities as well, that they are, efficient once they're able to get going there. And the defensive metrics are just insane. Second in second in adjusted efficiency on defense, second in effective field goal percentage, third in turnover percentage forced. The defensive 3-point percentage is 14th in the country. 2-point percentage is 4th. Block percentage is top 5. It's all, the defense is outrageous. It's just top 10, if not top 5 in all categories. Their only losses were to Iowa State, TCU, Kansas away, and then that Iowa State loss, which was tough. So, but yeah.
So all the teams that they lost to, they also beat. So
yes. So yeah, you just kind of get afraid of, especially, I mean, the way for one of the formulas for like lower seeds to win, and not the same for everyone, but is to kind of slow the game down, force fewer possessions, then force, odd things to happen, maybe a few more missed shots, a few more turnovers, is to really slow it down, not speed it up. And so you have teams like Houston who want to have fewer possessions, and that can lead to closer games sometimes, which can be problematic. So it can be your kryptonite as well as your strength, and that's one problematic. They're my preseason pick to win it. I thought LG Cryer would be a great upgrade, and he's been a very good player. And they certainly could still win it, but with the strength of a few of these teams like UConn and Purdue, we'll see. Let's run through the rest of their bracket here. We do have Nebraska and Texas A&M in the 8-9. I've liked Nebraska this year quite a bit. Texas A&M is a horrific three-point shooting team. They're one of the worst in the entire country, and they've had their struggles in the SEC, certainly. Nebraska, not that you see this hardly ever, Northwestern, who made its first NCAA tournament just about, was it 8, 9, 10 years ago? The last of the Power 5, 6 teams to make an NCAA tournament. Yeah. Nebraska and Northwestern at the top of the Big Ten this year. And Texas A&M able to make it in here, but shooting is sometimes optional for this team. So
I really do. I have liked Nebraska all season. They've been really well rounded. They don't have quite the talent, to win the Big Ten yet, but they've come a long way as a program, I think, over the past couple of years. I don't really see this game being close, to be honest. I think Nebraska kind of walks away with this one. It's an interesting seeding, I think, for Nebraska as well. Like, I could have seen them as like a 6. 8 seems high, but I think they'll be just fine here. I think it would be really sad if we got a rematch of Nebraska and Wisconsin. But
yeah,
I could, not that Nebraska will beat Houston, but that's just an interesting, spot there to put them right next to each other.
Yeah, I agree. Nebraska, of course, has a very good young man hitting a whole lot of threes. Bryce Williams has been very good for them. Oh boy, I can read it now and I'm not going to say it right, but Tamanega, Kaisi Tamanega. I'm not going to say it right. It doesn't matter.
Here,
we listen to listen to all the broadcasts, and then the second that I don't have it in my head and I have to read, I'm like, nope, not going to happen. But yeah, they're all upperclassmen. Besides Jermichael Lawrence, they shoot pretty good shooting team. 3 points.
Tominaga.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I said, Elliot. I don't know what the problem is.
Mm-hmm. Say it again.
Yeah, what you said. Top 100 in effective field goal percentage. Don't turn the ball over very much. Good 2-point shooting, 3-point shooting, free throw shooting team. Adjusted offense efficiency, top 40, top 30 defense as well, and top 15 in effective field goal percentage on defense. They don't allow you to shoot at a very high rate either. Now, Texas A&M effective field goal percentage is ranked 345th in the country. 3-point percentage is ranked 353rd, and 2-point percentage is ranked 301st. I mean, it's Ken Palm's site is color coded, green for good, red for bad, and we're talking like deep shades of red. And there's 370 something teams in Division One. Now the efficiency metrics are still decent. I don't know all the science behind it, so I don't know how you can be super efficient but bad. I don't know all the numbers behind it, but the point is 28% from 3 as a team. That's bad. So I'm kind of with you, especially, they had an okay run through the SEC tournament. They won their last 3 games of the season, but they had a 5-game smashing through there where they lost 5 in a row. They don't have a lot of impressive wins in there. They had a nice W over Tennessee, grabbed Kentucky in the tournament, but had a number of losses as well. The main thing that didn't hurt them is they didn't have any really bad losses, other than Arkansas team a couple times that didn't really pan out, but just not. Again, I think the point is horrible shooting team. I think we got that down pat pretty good. So,
yeah,
I think we got that down. So next up, Wisconsin and James Madison. I love James Madison. Wisconsin obviously took a huge chunk of losses during the midsection of the season. This was a team that was projected early to be actually higher than a 5 seed. Actually, kind of surprising they trickled back up there. Wisconsin thoughts?
This should be actually a really good game. I liked Wisconsin a lot in the beginning of the year. They fell off right in the middle, but they've been playing a lot better towards the end of the year as well, right? They knocked off Purdue to play in the Big Ten championship game, right?
Yep.
I'm not hallucinating. That actually happened. And
yeah, the buzzer.
Right. And, played really well. And so they have the ability to, when they put it together, they're easily a top 10 team. Can they have a similar run through the tournament here? We'll see. We got to see James Madison right away, right? Knocking off Michigan State at home. Is Michigan State a good team? That's a different conversation. But still, right, a really impressive win. They only have 3 losses the whole season. Regardless of what conference you're in, that's still a difficult thing to do. I know people would, myself included, give Gonzaga some shade for doing that when they're not playing very good opponents, but just consistently win throughout the season is difficult to do, even especially on the road like we've seen all year. So I think this could be a really good game. James Madison is not going to be afraid to play Wisconsin, right? Which makes that really good. They move the ball really well. They shoot pretty well. They're not that dissimilar in terms of like their statistics, right?
No.
So James Madison actually scores, points per game is higher, but their competition is lower, obviously. So this could be a quite a good game. I don't see James Madison pulling this out, but I wouldn't be surprised, if we don't see the Wisconsin team that has been showing up in the good runs they've had during the season.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've gone back and forth on this. Certainly, Wisconsin gives up a lot of threes, and that's really problematic for them. James Madison, top 50 3-point and 2-point shooting, effective. I mean, they're good on both sides of the ball. As a matter of fact, their 3-point defense is second in the country. Now, again, quality opponent, you have to figure that in. They played a lot of teams in the 200 rankings, 300s. Like you said earlier, I think Michigan State was the only. Michigan State might have been. Well, they lost to Appalachian State twice. They only have 3 losses, period. So they're 1-2 against top 150 teams. Yeah, they didn't play anyone, was the point, right?
They have not played anyone. Looking at their schedule, they have not played anyone. They handled them all, obviously. Losing to Appalachian State twice is a little weird.
That's a decent
games.
team. Yeah. And Wisconsin, again, down the stretch here, outside of the nice Big Ten tournament run, they had lost 8 of their final 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, how much stock do you put in the tournament at the end of the year?
Usually not much. But they did beat Purdue. Purdue did not look very good in that tournament. To be honest, it looked like they were maybe saving themselves, knowing how, and we've seen that in the past with other teams, right? Like, just not that they don't want to win it, but like they came back for a reason to win a championship, right? And they got embarrassed last year. So we're going to see a different Purdue team, I think, this tournament. But Wisconsin, they beat Marquette earlier in the season, right? They beat Virginia, who didn't turn out to be a very good team. They were in a game with Tennessee, their second game of the season. They got hammered by Arizona at Arizona. Not an easy place to play. And a lot of their losses were pretty close. The really bad loss at Michigan. They lost to Purdue earlier in the season.
Yeah.
They had a close loss at Iowa, right? Close loss versus Indiana. 8-point loss to Illinois. Like they're playing good teams, and I mean when Illinois is on, what's his name? Shannon. That guy's ridiculous, right? So it's not really, and he took over that game, and that's why they lost the championship, right? So I think Wisconsin will win against most mid-tier opponents, and it's really a matter of will James Madison play above, up to the level of Wisconsin, and can they pull it off? I can certainly see that happening, but I think if Wisconsin shows up and plays the way they've been playing, they'll take care of business.
Yeah. I've split in some of the brackets I started to do. I tend to lean Wisconsin and then root for the upset. I can do that. So I'd probably go with Wisconsin. Same as you. The Badgers there. Duke and Vermont's up next. This seems like deja vu. I mean, besides Vermont being in winning the conference for the umpteenth time in a row, the Catamounts. Yep. Good group here. The Duke Blue Devils have not played super well in Schreier's second year. That being said, they are easily the second best team in a crummy ACC. They have a lot of talents, of course, loaded with guys. They'll be going to the NBA soon here. Kyle Filipowski. There we go. Hey, there's a name.
Did it?
Say that one. The big 7-foot sophomore. Jeremy Roach has been there forever.
I can't believe he's still in college.
Yeah. Mark Mitchell, another talented 6'9", listed at 6'9", wing player there.
I think I don't see Vermont just doesn't have the talent to match up with Duke. It's kind of a tough draw for them because if they had maybe one of they're 13 seeds, so you're going to get a tough draw no matter what. But it's kind of unfortunate. I just think they're going to be way overmatched to Duke. Duke has a tendency to play down to their competition, right? It's kind of why they are where they are. But I just don't see Vermont pulling this off.
Yeah, Duke is they've gotten better towards the back end of the year. They had some tough luck. Arkansas and Georgia Tech back to back to start the season. Towards the beginning of the season was tough. Towards the end of the year, lost to Wake Forest. Not the worst in the world, certainly, but not great. Actually, back-to-back losses coming in here to North Carolina, NC State. Losing to North Carolina at home seems to be a new thing here for Duke. Absolutely destroying Coach K and his run 2 years ago. His last home game, his last regular season game, losing at home to North Carolina, and then losing to them in the NCAA tournament, and their only meeting ever between Duke and North Carolina. Just haunting after like a 50-year career. But yeah, Duke, again, top 10 in offense, top 30 defense adjusted. The metrics look pretty clean for the most part. It's just the eyeball test and just a team that doesn't look like they operate at the same level that they have in previous seasons. And again, Jeremy Roach and a bunch of youth, a lot of sophomores on this team, and we'll just have to see how they look moving forward.
Yeah, I mean the question in that game particularly is, can Vermont stop Filipowski? And I don't think so. So I think that's pretty much that game. Yeah,
if they don't have like a tremendous amount of size, Duke doesn't, but obviously they have more than what Vermont does. So that's obviously the key problem, and seems fairly easy for them to pencil them in. So we got Duke advancing here, so we're chalk so far. Do you want to stay in this upper part? Or do you want
to
let's keep going? Okay. Houston, Nebraska.
Yeah, I think Houston's defense here is too much for Nebraska. They're going to make those. They're going to make Nebraska's. They're just smaller, especially Nebraska's guards. And it's going to be really difficult for them to shoot at the level that they had been. I mean, anybody playing Houston could say that, right? And I just don't see Nebraska being able to pull that off. They don't have the firepower, and they do not have the level of defense.
Yeah, choosing when Houston loses is basically when you think you have the offensive weapons to be able to kind of break what they're doing defensively. And they're fun to watch defensively. I mean, you think, well, I don't want to watch a game that ends 54-50, but then you watch what Houston does on the defensive side of the ball, and you're like, hands up, flying around, flags flailing. It's an incredible thing to watch when they're on. But when they're having problems and their defense is kind of getting broken, then it's not as fun to watch, because despite the fact that, like Cryer coming in and Shaneed are some scoring weapons, they just don't have the dogs that other teams do. So Wisconsin and Duke.
Yeah, this will be a good game too. Man,
You just go with the best player?
I don't know. There's interesting guard matchups here, I think, because I do like Wisconsin. I mean, they got some older players at the guard positions, and then I guess Wisconsin has some older guys down there, down low too. They're not shooters, right? I cannot think of their names right now. Hold on.
Gotcha.
I did just watched them play. You think I'd know.
Well, a lot of names.
I like Hepburn and Blackwell, right? Their guards. Oh, Wall, Tyler Wall, and Stephen Crowell, right? And then AJ Storr has been playing just incredible. Jeez, I don't know. That one's a toss-up for me. I'm a little Big Ten biased, and I've seen more of Wisconsin, so that may be why I picked them.
Yeah. Duke lost again to NC State. Of course, a lot of teams lost to NC State in the ACC tournament. Kind of has me doubting some of their abilities there. Again, they're younger outside of point guard, which is important in Jeremy Roach, but maybe that's telling that Jeremy Roach has been there 5 years. Let's go Wisconsin. Not that we have to agree on everything. Is Wisconsin the team to beat Houston then for a trip to the Elite Eight?
They are not.
Okay. Easy enough there. Let's go to the bottom half of the South here. Number 6, Texas Tech, and number 11, NC State. NC State, man. They're really not a good team.
So Texas Tech has kind of gone on a run, right? A little bit. At least they've seemed to play decently. They've lost to good teams, right? For the most part.
They only play good teams for the most part in the Big 12 there, yeah.
And I do think they're more solid all around.
Top 25 offense, top 50 defense, adjusted efficiency, anyways.
Right, because they beat Baylor, they beat BYU, and then they got crushed by Houston, right?
Yep.
And they have some not great losses on their resume. They did lose to UCF and Texas.
This is arguably a team that's seated too high.
Yeah, they don't really have. Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of upper tier, upper third of the Big 12. So where, what's their most impressive win? And
literally Baylor the last game of the year, and BYU
crushed Kansas when Kansas was ranked higher than they should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is chalk too. I don't believe in NC State. not that I believe in Texas Tech, but I do more so than NC State.
Well, Texas Tech is a good 3-point shooting team, top 40, and NC State is 247th on 3-point percentage defense. So maybe we just stick with that. Also, besides winning 5 games in 5 days, they lost 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of their last 14 games. So I think
yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Losing to teams like Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Syracuse all in a row, that's not good.
Not good stuff. Kentucky and Oakland winning the Horizon Conference Championship and the regular season. Actually, a decent team. They played Xavier and Ohio State very close earlier in the season. Not a bad team there, but not a team anyone's particularly talking about. Kentucky is very streaky. They didn't even get one of their top recruits until he was deemed eligible in, what was it, like January, I think it was. So a team that a lot of folks are picking to make like the Final Four and stuff. I think when the wheels come off, they could come off very badly. But I don't think this is the game where that happens.
I've watched both of these teams this year. And like Kentucky, yeah, they do have the ability when they put it all together to be a very good team. They don't love playing defense. I think the metrics will probably bear that out, but from what I've watched, they don't enjoy that very much. And so they are fun to watch, though, right? Because in Kentucky usually is, right? It's a bunch of really athletic people. As long as they're not turning the ball over a ton, they're usually fairly fun to watch. But also can be very frustrating because you know the level of talent that they have, and you just see them quite literally throw it away. But yeah, I think they win this game pretty easily. Just not Oakland is not the team that can match up with the talent of a team like Kentucky.
No. Oakland, all things considered, for a mid-major or even a lower mid-major, is actually a decent shooting team, but we're talking like in the hundreds ranking-wise. And then the freshmen, Kentucky's mostly freshmen again, for those that haven't watched a ton of them. They're actually top 5 offense. They're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. That's because Rob Dillingham is shooting at about 45% freshman guard there. They also have Reed Shepard, who's shooting at 52%, and we're talking over 130 attempts for each of them. The guard play, really good freshman guards. Antonio Reeves is one of the seniors that plays a lot of time. DJ Wagner, another good freshman. So not a lot of big size that plays a whole lot, but just a lot of youth. So defense is okay. They don't force a lot of turnovers. That may be something worth noting. So we'll put them through, though. Florida is the 7th seed. They'll be playing the winner of Boise State and Colorado. Colorado has a lot of talent that's potentially going on to the NBA. Good 3-point shooting team, not good on defense. Boise State comes from what's been a loaded Mountain West team, got a lot of squads in there and a good basketball team. Florida's center went down in the SEC championship game. Florida's kind of just been plodding along. There we go. Kind of plodding along there, much like my speech. And not a highly touted game. Of course, we don't know who's going to make it actually into the field of 64 yet, but this is our next matchup on the slate. Do you have any strong thoughts?
I have not seen Florida at all, looking at their schedule. Looks like they do have a couple of good wins. They beat Kentucky, they beat Auburn, they beat Alabama twice. I don't know how much stock I put in beating Alabama. Alabama is a 3-and-D team, right? Like, I mean,
Alabama's they lost the D too.
Right. So I don't know how much stock you put in that, and then they did lose to Auburn in the SEC tournament. I don't know if Florida's any good. I really, all their wins, other than the couple that I mentioned, are not worth mentioning. They're not good wins. So I don't really know what to make of them. They don't really have anything non-conference wise to look at other than they lost to Virginia, who's not very good. So I don't really know a team that really only played within the SEC and was middle of the pack, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. I haven't been excited by any that I've seen. Their offensive metrics measure out okay. They're a good offensive rebounding team, but that offensive rebounder out now. So
I could see Colorado winning their playing game and then beating Florida.
Yeah, I could see that too. My first thought was if you're these hot shooting teams, these 3-point shooting teams are real threatening, but if they're not hitting, then they have problems too, much like Colorado. Boise State actually has good metrics on both sides of the ball for the most part. The strength of who they've played can be in doubt. They're not a particularly great shooting team, but they're not bad either. They give the 2-point percentage is bad. 258th in the country, over 52%, but they have a good 3-point percentage defense. So actually a tough matchup possibly for Colorado. They don't have a ton of size. So yeah, I'd like the winner to certainly beat Florida. Who that is, though, I'm not super sure at this particular point. I'm thinking Colorado as well. So we will pencil in probably Colorado here as the 10 seed. They'll be playing the winner of Marquette and Western Kentucky.
I've seen a little bit of Marquette this year. I haven't seen any of Western Kentucky because why would I? I've always been a fan of Marquette, and they always let me down. I have a hard time believing that Marquette is going to do anything in this tournament, even as highly as they are ranked. But I don't know anything about Western Kentucky. So what do you got for me?
Number 1 in adjusted tempo. They push the ball.
About turnovers.
Turnovers. They turn the ball over. They sure do that. And they force some turnovers as well. Shooting team, okay. Shooting defense, a little bit better. We're talking inside the top 100. I mean, they're not a dumpster fire, but that's kind of how they got here. So again, pushing the pace. If you're not a great shooting team and your defense isn't kind of top flight, is problematic. And Marquette's registered, they were in top 20 metrics. They were in championship consideration metrics as far as meeting those requirements for a good chunk of the season. This could be an interesting game. Marquette doesn't mind running a little bit sometimes, but again, I think it's possible they could make things messy for Western.
Yeah, I could see Western Kentucky speeding up Marquette a bit. It's interesting looking at the ESPN has the notable wins and losses for Marquette, and they lost to UConn 3 times, and they were not close.
Yeah,
2 of them. So, and that's not surprising, as I think UConn is going to win this tournament. But they also lost to Creighton, who they did beat as well one time, and I don't know. I think Marquette is the more complete team, right? But can they actually put it together and win a couple games in this tournament? I kind of have them picked that way. I am totally prepared to be let down by them again because they always do. So I could see this being an upset if they get sped up and they turn the ball over and Western Kentucky's really, really determined to make life difficult for them. So I have Marquette, but I would not. Again, this is a game where I would not be surprised if they lost.
Okay. All right. We'll make note of that. Make note of that. All right. Texas Tech, Kentucky, the 6-3 chalk.
I have Texas Tech here, and you may be surprised at that, but I think Kentucky is young, and I think they have that tendency to not put everything together. And this being their second game in that amount of time, and that kind of pressure, I could see them dropping this one.
I am a little surprised, but I kind of like it. You're right. The back-to-backs really matter a lot. I guess I'm more disappointed that Coach Calipari has not been able to get this team looking like a real competitor. Sometimes you get tired of the Kentuckys and the North Carolinas and the Dukes, but at the same time, when you have talented players, can we see you put talented games to, like, can we see it?
Right.
It's
be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I don't know that if you haven't done it by this point, you're probably not going to do it. And losing to Texas A&M, that's a bad loss. I don't. There's nothing else to say about that. Like, that's, they did go on a good run. They beat Alabama, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, right towards the end of the year. But yeah, you could argue Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt are not very good. And not to take away from beating Alabama or Tennessee, but I can't. I don't have that much faith that they'll be able to put it together and beat Texas Tech, who I've seen play more consistently, I will say.
Yeah. Well, you think Marquette can lose to anyone, so
I do. That's just my own belief of seeing them play poorly in tournaments for 10 years.
Okay, so perhaps we would deviate on this next pick, because I would put them through over Boise State or Colorado personally.
I have it in my bracket marked as Marquette wins that game, but I just don't believe it in my heart.
Okay, well, would you pick Texas Tech to advance to the Elite Eight?
Absolutely not. Which is why you see why I'm going to get so burned by Marquette, because I have to put them up against Houston.
Okay. And then out of these two teams that you don't like, who would you pick to go to the Final Four?
It has to be Houston.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything about Houston tells me their metrics are good enough to get them to the Final Four.
Yep. I think so. Yeah, just the weakness in some of these teams. Again, Marquette losing to Connecticut 3 times is very telling, I think, but not able to get them one time. They lost to Wisconsin, actually, who's in this bracket. Mm-hmm. They lost to Purdue. I still think they're a really good team, but when you lose to all the good teams, then what are your good wins? Exactly. They have a win over Kansas. They have a win over Creighton, but that's very difficult.
The team we thought they were, and has injuries, right?
Yep.
And I don't know what Creighton is. We'll get to them.
Yeah. So, and so Duke, we're not sure about. Kentucky, we're not sure about. So this could be pretty easy for, you don't really want to say easy because Nebraska could beat Houston, but it could be interesting bracket there.
I'd love to see Kentucky beat Marquette and play Houston. I think they would get destroyed, but I would love to see that. I just, because like we talk about Kentucky being a really talented team and wanting to see that talent on display, you don't see it with a lot of Calipari teams that they put it together, right? They have a lot of talent, but they don't play as a team, and that's why you see them lose, and that's why you see them not doing well in the tournament. So,
yeah. All right, Midwest. Maybe pick it up a little bit here. Purdue playing the winner of Grambling. I think
easy win. Purdue moves on. Edie eats.
Okay. Utah State and Texas Christian University. A decent little squad there for the Horny Frogs.
I see TCU in this one. TCU's defense is quite good. Their offense is, hard to watch. They are terrible sometimes.
Yes.
Their offense is tough tough to watch. They are not good shooters. I don't know what their metrics are, but doesn't look good.
No. Top 50 for the metrics, but that means absolutely nothing when you have some of these games on. So Utah State's top 40 offense, top 70 defense. They have some good metrics, but I just don't really know how good they are. Yeah. They played with all these other Mountain West teams that could all get whacked. Very good 2-point shooting team, not good 3-point shooting team, very good 3-point shooting defense, not good 2-point shooting defense. Very confusing team.
I think that lines up well for TCU because TCU, from what I've seen, cannot shoot three. They're big. They play good defense. They are good at walling up and rebounding, and that's why they beat Houston, right? So.
Yeah. They oddly enough do not have a very good 2-point shooting defense. So I don't know if that's actually going to be problematic or not. But yeah, again, same as you, I lean TCU for this one. Gonzaga and McNeese State, who was one of the teams I texted you that I liked, and then they got placed with Gonzaga. So
I got them with the upset here. 12-5, you got to do it somewhere, right? Gonzaga hasn't really been talked about this year. I made a little bit of money betting against Gonzaga. I actually got them. I think it was one of the San Francisco games they played, which no, was it? Oh, that's on their
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, yeah, they don't play well against St. Mary's. And St. Mary's is a pretty good team. They're a decent team. So what's that?
They won. I mean, they won the conference. That's something.
Yeah. So I'm not a Gonzaga believer. I try not to be a hater, but I would go with the upset here. Yeah.
30-3 is McNeese State. Will Wade, formerly of LSU. I think this is the third different school that he's taken to the NCAA tournament. 50th in adjusted offense, 84th in adjusted defense. They force turnovers. They are a good shooting team. They are a good shooting defense. They cannot hit free throws.
Yeah, who needs them?
Right. Right. And they move very slow. So, but yeah, I like them. Gonzaga still sneaks in as a top 10 offense, and they're effective on that side. They're so at shooting the three. The defense has been a question mark, and statistically, that's looked better. But again, that's bulked up due to not playing a particularly strong schedule in the WCC. So I am happy to go McNeese over Gonzaga in the upset. And this is a really interesting bracket because Samford and Kansas is another one. Of course, we have Mr. I call him Hunt Dick for short, Hunter Dickinson, coming off his injury, and the other top player there for Kansas, whose name is eluding me right now. But they're the top two scorers in the Big 12. Both playing for Kansas there, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. And both were hurt for the conference championship, or held out of the conference tournament there, and they were blown out by Cincinnati. It's long been talked about all year that Kansas is basically four guys, no depth, can't even put a fifth starter out there really. Defensive metrics aren't bad. Offensive metrics are so. And again, it really revolves around Hunter Dickinson and the paint and whether anyone can stop him for the most part. I mean, that's really what it depends on. Now, Samford, who rightfully no one's really watched, like a lot of these teams, 29-5, top 100 in Ken Pom ranking, top 70 offense. Defense isn't too bad. Their effective field goal percentage is top 10. They're a top 10 3-point shooting team, top 20 2-point shooting team. The defense isn't bad. And they force turnovers, top 10 in the country at steal percentage. So there are some metrics that say Stanford Samford can pull an upset as well.
I don't see that here just because of Kansas getting back their two big scorers, and I think Hunter Dickinson does not allow them to lose this game. Even though watching Kansas this year, they have not been the team that everybody thought they were, right? Preseason and the beginning of the season. I do think they win this game.
I've gone back and forth both on Gonzaga, McNeese, and Samford, Kansas. And it didn't help either that on the broadcast, I can't remember which guy it was that was like, oh, I'm going to pick McNeese and Samford to advance. I'm like, what? Now everyone's going to start picking that stuff. The size matters, though. I mean, if Hunter Dickinson is just going to wall things off defensively and then just go unblocked on offense, and we're talking not a lot of size for Samford at all. We have one guy over 6'8", two guys over 6'8", but one of them doesn't play. So I'm inclined.
I've watched too much Hunter Dickinson against smaller opponents to not believe that he won't have 30 points in this game.
Yeah. So we will advance Kansas there. Purdue and TCU then, the 1-9 matchup. Does Purdue go down to Texas Christian?
They don't. Edie is great. They're going to draw a lot of fouls. They're going to shoot a lot of free throws. Purdue also is very good at shooting threes and moving the ball around. I think their defense is just good enough that TCU won't be able to do a whole lot.
Agreed. McNeese and Kansas.
Upset. I got McNeese pulling the upset here because I do think Kansas's depth will be a problem here. And I got McNeese dancing on in.
Okay. I can go with that. The number of times I have penciled multiple double-digit seeds into the Sweet 16 has been many as I've been plotting through these brackets. The size for McNeese State is still not awesome, so that will obviously be a concern. But again, they look real good. They look real good. It kind of seems like they'll figure it out. Again, we're picking upsets here. Turnovers, a big piece of their winning, one of the best in the country doing it. Purdue over McNeese?
Yes. Purdue, I finally have them making some progress this year on a little bit of a redemption tour. Edie is just, he's a monster. You talk about size, and I mean, and they have shooters. Like Purdue is a much more complete team than we have seen in the previous seasons.
Braden Smith is shooting almost 45% from three. Fletcher Lawyer is shooting almost 44% from three. Lance Jones is shooting a decent percentage as well as the only other senior besides Edie that gets a whole lot of time. Gillis gets a fair amount of time too, and he's shooting about 48%. So it's really good. I mean, no surprise. Second in 3-point percentage in the country at almost 41%.
Purdue is a mature team, right? They have a lot of older guys that have been around the program for a while. They played in tournaments. They played together, right? They're good at running different things on offense when something isn't working.
And playing freshmen last year at freshman guards last year.
Yep.
Has helped this season. So South Carolina and Oregon is the 6-11. Oregon doesn't have any like super impressive metrics. South Carolina is a defensive team that has made its bones in just beating the like bad teams, basically. I am high on picking them to lose, quite frankly.
I have Oregon upsetting them as well.
Okay, well, it's pretty straightforward. Number 3, Creighton. Number 14, Akron. I told you I like the Zips. I finally listened to something today where a couple guys picked the Zips to win.
Really?
Yeah. 3-Man Weave podcast. Like those guys. Those are good fellas.
Even though they've lost to the Toledo Rockets, Utah State, Drake, UNLV, and St. Bonaventure.
Hey, look, we're not talking number 1 seeds here. All right. as the number gets higher, you start to pick up a few losses.
Let's just compare losses. Creighton's losses are to UConn, Marquette, and St. John's. So notable losses versus also Creighton as one of the few teams that has beaten the Huskies this year. So
yeah, but we know Creighton's inconsistent. We know Creighton, of course, Creighton we liked last year too, though, and they lost by a possession to San Diego State to make it to the Final Four, which was kind of heartbreaking. I mean, great for either school. But that was tough last year. Yeah, Creighton again this season. Again, that Big East was just a gauntlet, which is kind of, I should say, a gauntlet of mediocrity, but a gauntlet nonetheless. This team's a good shooting team. I mean, that's why we mentioned them at the top as top 12th ranked adjusted offensive efficiency. Effective field goal percentage is third 2-point percentage. Effectiveness little less on 3-point percentage, but still good defensive shooting numbers. And so I'm not picking the Zips to win.
Oh, okay.
I just it's
just a fan.
I'm just I'm gonna root for them though.
Okay.
They have some size, a little bit.
I can root for them. No, maybe I can't. We'll see.
Creighton's got Ryan Kalkbrenner, big 7'1" kid, fun to watch. Trey Alexander, of course. Baylor Schreierman, lots of good big names on there. Texas, 7 seed, who's beaten pretty much nobody, playing the play-in of Colorado State and Virginia. It's happening right now. I hate Virginia. I think they suck right now. I easily put Colorado State in there. Personally,
Yeah, I don't think either team is good. I don't think any of those 3 teams are good.
Yeah. So
if I
let's
could
do
pick
this
them all to lose, I would.
So we could do this as a bundle. I mean, because the last section is obviously number 2 Tennessee and number 15 St. Peter's. So I think Tennessee is going to go to the Sweet 16. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. Although St. Peter's only upset would be amazing.
It would be. Peacock's not nearly the team they were last season, but some of the same faces are around there, actually. They didn't all follow what's his name over to Seton Hall. Some of them did stay in place there. However, Tennessee looking a lot better this year. I know you still can't rely on them either. I understand that. I actually think they're going to have more success this season.
I just don't like their coach.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah, I understand that. Barnes is mixed results at best, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Texas still has a top 20 offense. Defense is 60th. They still have some fine metrics, but they've been so unimpressive. Their best win, I mean, they got to win over Baylor at home. They got to win over TCU on the road. And after that, we're looking at they got Texas Tech late on the road. Maybe Oklahoma.
It's a rivalry game, though, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that game like a 1-possession game?
It was a 14-point game.
Oh, well.
Baylor was a 1-possession game. They lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 conference tournament. They do have Max Abmas, who's a very good guard. I believe he leads the whole school in career scoring at this point. Small, 6 foot is his measurement. Well, he's probably smaller. I don't know. I would actually lean Texas to win, but still like Tennessee to advance to the Sweet 16. Creighton and Oregon, any thoughts there?
I don't want to pick Creighton, but yeah. I mean, Oregon. I don't know. I
Top
can't
50,
see it.
top 50 offense, top 70th defense and adjusted efficiency. Defense isn't great. Shooting numbers. They lost a lot of games down the stretch. Even though they
Yeah,
won.
I don't think their defense is very good, and I think they did beat Arizona, but again, like that's because Caleb Love hit like, oh, let me just pull this up here. Caleb Love was what from 3? What's your guess?
Oh boy. 2 for 10.
1 for 7.
Oh, well, hey.
And as a team, they shot 26.3% from 3. That's why Arizona lost, right?
Hmm.
You shoot 5 for 19, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was really Oregon's defense. I mean, I've seen Arizona a couple times in person this year. I've watched them in warm-ups, live bet against them because I didn't see the threes go down, and they lost those games. So, I don't know how much that is really due to the opponent, to be honest with you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't know that Oregon is really. They're an 11 seed, which is not, they're upper third of the Pac-12, which will no longer exist, right? And
Yep.
they don't really have many impressive wins, so I can't say that they're really a good team. They have one good win against a ranked team, and the rest is pretty meh.
So Tennessee and Creighton, the 2-3. Tennessee is top 10 in a lot of defensive metrics. The offense is trailing significantly behind, but is not horrible. They have a great player in Dalton Kincaid, shooting almost 40% from 3, a decent volume. Senior player there, probably going to the NFL. NFL.
Oh, the NFL! Wow,
Yeah, he's really talented.
Jesus.
Going to the NBA. Creighton, Tennessee. Couple teams here.
Yeah,
I
I don't like either of them, and I would rather not pick Tennessee. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, for a long time, my mindset was getting a bucket is important. Shooting is important. I tend to lean Creighton. Over time, I think defense tends to be more important. I think Kincaid might be the best player on the floor. I mean, this could be a split. We're splitting hairs. Do you want to go Creighton?
I don't want to, but I will.
So right now, we have in our Elite Eight, or excuse me, in our Final Four, we have Houston out of the South, and we will have the winner of Purdue Creighton in the Midwest. I'm going to go ahead and put Purdue in, but Elliot and I will have a quick back and forth about it. So presumably we will have 2 number 1 seeds in here. In the West region, North Carolina, North Carolina and Wagner. We'll go ahead and punch North Carolina in. Wagner, of course, just beat Howard and crushed Elliot's nice little parlay, unfortunately. The North Carolina Tar Heels here. And Money Babcock, 2-time ACC Player of the Year. Coming back, playing pretty well. All they had to do was boot Caleb Williams off, and the team's been pretty productive. RJ Davis has been just phenomenal for the team. We'll go ahead and ship them off, of course, to the second round of the tournament. They'll get the winner of Mississippi State and Michigan State. Now, again, Mississippi State's been a decent team here, a good defensive team in the SEC. I think the last game I watched of significant volume of theirs, they let Texas A&M back in a game, and that they were up huge and then lost, and actually lost the last 4 games of the regular season period. Kentucky, Auburn, Texas A&M, and South Carolina were those games, so they weren't a horrible competition. Or not horrible competition, not the best competition for a couple of those, but all teams in the NCAA tournament nevertheless. Not a great offensive team, good 3-point defensive team, but really a couple squads that have not been terribly productive this year. Michigan State's main weakness is going to be playing another really good big, which is, Amani Babcock would be that for North Carolina. Elliot, any thoughts on Creighton and Purdue to wrap up the Midwest region? Is Purdue going to beat Creighton?
Yes.
Okay. And Mississippi State and Michigan State.
Oh, the MSUs.
Mhm.
Jeez. I picked Mississippi State.
You did.
I don't feel great about it. All I've been hearing is that they're a good defensive team. I don't know what Michigan State is. I've watched them a bunch. I don't know what they are. I don't really put any stock in how well they played against Purdue, mostly because like I said, I think Purdue is kind of not caring how well they play in that tournament. This is really a toss-up game to me. I think it will come down to whether Michigan State players actually want to win something. That hasn't really been the case this year. If they win a game, do they beat North Carolina? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think either one gets past North Carolina personally.
I think it's a toss-up for me. I'm fine with going with Michigan State over Mississippi State. I really don't have any strong feelings about who's going to win that game. MSU, their biggest win was what, Baylor?
Yeah, but we've now said that about a couple teams. So what does that tell you?
I don't think Baylor's very good. And then they beat Illinois, which was a good win, right? And they played Purdue close twice and lost both times.
Yeah, but much to the point I brought up earlier, if you go through, like, let's say our definition of good for now is how many tournament teams you've played. They've played like 15, but they've lost like
most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because I think Mississippi State does have really good wins, right? They beat Auburn, they won at Tennessee, they beat Tennessee at home. Now you can kind of say, oh, well, is that just a matchup thing?
A lot of splits. They split with a lot of those teams.
Yeah, and had a 2-point game, lost against Kentucky. They got drilled against Alabama. So what does that tell me? Maybe if Michigan State shoots the 3 well, which they haven't been doing this season, maybe they win, right? That if Michigan State hits 3s, they win the game, right? They've been super inconsistent all year. They have not been a good 3-point shooting team, which makes it really hard for me to want to pick them against the Mississippi State team that has good defensive metrics, right?
Good defense, bad offense. Not average, not okay, but they're bad offensively across the board.
And Michigan State is not a good defense, right? They're probably middle, if I had to guess.
Actually, they're kind of the other way. They're good defensively, but they're well. Hang on. Let me confirm. I'm looking at so many numbers in here because their defense is actually adjusted efficiency is 8th in the country, 58th effective field goal percentage, 3-point percentage is 115th. You're right. That's pedestrian. 2-point percentage 50. So a lot of it slipped. You're not wrong on that. So I'm expecting a grindy, low-scoring game.
It's gonna be ugly as hell.
Their offensive metrics are still a little bit better. They also played a lot slower than I expected. 305th in adjusted tempo.
Is that Michigan State?
Michigan State, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't expect Spartan fans, of course, being here in Spartan country, think that they're going to be able to beat North Carolina and make a little run. And it's certainly possible. But North Carolina, man, to their credit, like RJ Davis has been a fireball recently, now a senior. He's not incredibly big. I always think he's a big, rangy wing, but he's listed at 6 foot. but he's taken over 253 pointers. He's shooting at 40%. He's had multiple offensive explosion games. Backhot has still been great in the post there. And they've had some contributions from, they've got a little bit of size. Harrison Ingram, 6'7" junior. Karamat Ryan is the 6'5" senior wing as well. Both shooting in the mid-30s from three. I think they're going to the Sweet 16. I certainly think that. Next section. Number 5, St. Mary's. Number 12, Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, another team I said I loved prior to the bracket coming out as I was trying to put some thoughts together. St. Mary's won the WCC. They've always been good, but for a while they're there in the shadow of Gonzaga. Certainly, now they're very much in the limelight. They were a team that lost a key player. Usually injuries aren't a huge piece, but they lost. I think it was a guard or a wing or something. I can look if you have any thoughts on this game. But before I go to you real quick, Grand Canyon won a whole lot of games this year. That's one of the reasons why they're like a 12 seed and not like a 16 here. It's because they have been such a good basketball team. 29-4, top 50. We'll say top 70 metrics, offensive and defensive efficiencies. They're literally like one of the best effective field goal defensive teams that there is right now. But of course, strength of competition comes into play. Best team they played is South Carolina, who they lost to by 7. After that, I mean, San Francisco's in the top 100. They beat them.
They beat San Diego State.
Yeah. Yes, they certainly did. I missed that one. Yes, they did. So that was their best win. Yeah. So, I mean, again, strength of competition is going to be a thing. Don't have a ton of size and upperclassmen, a lot of upperclassmen strength here. And this is a game you really don't like to see in the first round. Two mid majors playing each other. You want to see them play power conferences and see how they match up. That's what you want to see.
I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a game of runs, right? I do like St. Mary's. But I actually picked Grand Canyon for the upset here based on a little bit of what you said and a little bit of my own digging. And I think it's one of those 5-12 matchups where, you know, some of it's playing the odds. You're like, you know, the 12s beat the 5s, but also I think they can. I think it'll be a good game and a game of runs, and I think GCU has the firepower also located here in Arizona. But you know, they got that Christian faith backing them, and I think they'll take down the other Christian college in St. Mary's. So what a matchup! What a storyline we have there. maybe they'll pray together before and after the game.
Reach. Yeah, Joshua Jefferson, the forward, averaging 10 points, 6 rebounds per game, is out for sure. I believe it's at the reserve center. It's questionable. Stats not nearly as impressive, but so they could be in a little bit of trouble there. I agree with you. I picked Grand Canyon for the most part to advance in a couple of games because Alabama and Charleston. Again, the over-under on this, it puts the game in like the 90s for both of these teams.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, because Charleston's going to push and try to score a lot of points. And we know Alabama is, I can check their pace here. I'm getting them pulled up to double check. But it's been, Alabama's been very high up in pace of play for a number of years here. No different this year. All they do is shoot threes and run the floor. And defense has largely been a piece of that. It was last year when they were the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. And that's kind of fallen by the wayside a bit, unfortunately. And we're just going to see points. And it's going to come down to, Charleston can certainly win it. They're power ranked inside the top 100 in KenPom. And it's a team that shoots at a okay clip. Certainly not at Alabama's level. Can't pick Charleston for the upset myself. But 10th in adjusted tempo for Alabama, 2nd in adjusted offensive efficiency, 11th in effective field goal percentage, way down at 35, a field goal, 3-point percentage, 10th in 2, good 3-point shooting team, and not a whole lot else.
Yep. 3-D. Yeah, I have Alabama winning this. Obviously, I don't watch a lot of Charleston, but I think Alabama handles them. Could be another high-scoring, exciting action-packed game, and that one's actually before the St. Mary's Grand Canyon game as far as timing goes on the 22nd. So that could be some exciting back-to-back basketball there.
Yeah. You run the court and then you pray.
You always pray.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, obviously we don't watch a lot of these mid-majors. No one really does. You're kind of digging through.
They're not on TV.
Through numbers. That's true. I just picked an upset. I picked Grand Canyon right through to the Sweet 16.
I did as well. It's funny you mentioned that. I did as well. I have Grand Canyon beating Alabama and playing North Carolina.
Yeah. And then that's kind of where it ended for me. I had North Carolina going to the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Okay. Bottom half of the bracket here. Number 6, Clemson, and number 11, New Mexico, and really a toss-up. Actually, New Mexico might be favored in this one, but New Mexico was firmly on the bubble till they grabbed the auto bid by winning the conference tournament. Clemson looked great early in the season and then kind of farted around, and we know the strength of the ACC was just not there. They have a very good center. New Mexico actually has some strength in that same area, though, and can compete. So that may be where the great battle goes on, is in the front court or back court. I always get my, under the basket will be where the competition
there you go.
probably be held in the paint. So I don't know if you have any strong thoughts on either of these scores.
I don't like Clemson. They haven't looked good when I've watched them. Interestingly enough, they have a win at North Carolina just back in February, not even that long ago. So that's very intriguing. They also beat TCU and Alabama. They've also lost to Virginia, who's getting destroyed right now, and Wake Forest. So
and Notre Dame and Georgia Tech in double overtime, and Memphis, who fell off a cliff. Yeah.
So I actually like an upset here of with New Mexico.
That's solid. I like it. I think they're better, a little bit better on both sides of the ball, even though they lost some games down the stretch. Maybe the Mountain West was better than the ACC.
Ooh.
Number 3, Baylor. Number 14, Colgate. We're used to Colgate just pitching the ball at the basket from 3-point land. All right. Are you picking Baylor to take a loss here? I did not have that on my radar.
No, they're good enough to win this game. Colgate is who they are.
It's not the same Colgate as years past. It's not one of their better squads, although they again cleaned up in the Patriot League, but it's not the same squad as years past.
Yeah, and I think you take a look at how they did against higher competition, even though they were away games. A 30-point loss to Illinois, 30-point loss to Arizona, 20-point loss to 18-point loss to Yale, Syracuse, Cornell. Like, that's not good. I don't see them winning this game.
No. Well, while we're on it here, Baylor and New Mexico. Now, Baylor's main problem offensively, it's been quite good. The turnover percentage is a problem on offense, but other than that, they're a good shooting team. Top 10 adjusted offense, good effective field goal numbers. Top 10 3-point shooting team, just under 40%. Pretty good 2-point percentage number. The defense is bad.
Yep.
And they also have a good center in Yves Missy, the true freshman. Very good player. Probably a one and done there. They have a mix of upperclassmen, couple freshmen, young talent, but again, built more on offense this year than on the defensive side of the ball. They actually opened with a big win against Auburn, and it's been more missed than hit since then. Lost in the second round of the Big 12 conference tournament to Iowa State. They can certainly hang with a lot of big teams.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not sure. There's no clear met through lines here to say that Baylor's just gonna beat New Mexico, or that New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico again may line up very well with Baylor's nice center there. This could be an upset. Could very well be an upset. You have any thoughts here?
I don't think so. I think I've seen enough of Baylor that they should be able to win that game. I actually have them getting upset later by maybe a surprise team that you're not thinking about right below you. But
Nevada, you like Nevada. Okay, let's go on then. So let's just hit our bottom section here of the West bracket. So we've got number 7 Dayton playing number 10 Nevada, and then we've got number 2 Arizona playing number 15 Long Beach. We've talked here and there about Arizona, with Elliot being, especially in Tucson there. Number 15 Long Beach fired their coach on Monday of 17 years. And then they're like, you can stay on through the tournament. They did. They won it. And now he's staying on for the NCAA tournament. It'll be short-lived. Arizona will win this one. So we're going to go ahead and put that through. Number 7 Dayton, and number 10 the Nevada Wolfpack, which has been a surprising, I'll say it's been a surprising team. But again, from the Mountain West, a very good conference there. Dayton, Dayton's been good. Oh boy, punching my microphone again.
So
Dayton,
I know you think I like Nevada, but I actually like Dayton.
Stop it.
Yep.
The Flyers? Why?
They have played against good They played Houston. They've played Cincinnati, Northwestern, and they've been, in those games was relatively so. I don't know much about Nevada, who does seem to have some solid wins here. So you might be giving me something to think about here. But I actually had Dayton. Changed my mind.
No kidding. Well, Dayton has a really, really good star on their team, Deron Holmes. He'll be a future NBA player there. Nice 6'10" body, junior, shooting about 39% from 3, although not on a super high volume there. Solid team. They do have a couple losses in there. The A10, which is in years past got 3 teams or 4 teams in the tournament, turned into kind of a sludge fest the past couple of years. Richmond was in the mix for it this year, and then took some losses in the tournament. It was really a mess. The A10, the top 4 seeds in the conference tournament, who obviously finished top 4 in the regular season, all lost on the same day, which really opened up the auto bid. So I put Duquesne in. So we'll get to them later, and opened up to Temple as well, who was an 11 seed and awful, and they're under investigations for something else. That's a whole nother story. But Dayton was one of the top 4 seeds that lost early on. Very good 3-point shooting team, top 5 in the country. Very good effective shooting team overall. Good offensively. They play slow. The defensive metrics are pretty good for the most part. Again, future NBA player. They played a fairly challenging schedule. Northwestern, LSU, Houston, SMU was a good team in the non-conference. Cincinnati as well. They did play Oakland, which turned out to be a solid game. They even played Longwood earlier on. They did lose to Houston pretty soundly, and to Northwestern. And then took a couple losses to some of the better teams in the A10, Richmond, VCU, George Mason, and Loyola Chicago. And then lost to Duquesne in the A10 conference tournament. But this is another game I didn't necessarily want to see, where these two teams are playing each other. Nevada's top 40 offense and defensive metrics. They look pretty good on both sides of the ball and arguably played in a better conference there in the Mountain West. They've got, a few guys that can play. They're not, I would argue that they're not actually a super great shooting team. 3-point percentage is top 40 in the country. 2-point percentage is a little bit lower there. They did take a skid in the middle of the season where they lost to Boise, San Diego State, and Wyoming. They lost to Drake, New Mexico twice, and Colorado State in the conference tournament. None of those are bad other than Wyoming. That was a tough one, but that was a away game at the end of a 3-game skid there. Big wins, TCU. They did beat Colorado State once. They beat San Diego State, Boise State, conference wins there. But the metrics kind of like them. They don't have a lot of great size. The best player on the floor, again, is going to be on the Dayton side of things. I think it's going to be a really good game. And regardless of kind of who advances, again, the metrics love Arizona. They play that fast pace. We're constantly picking at Caleb Love, and he's not the only player that disappears sometimes. So this bottom half of the bracket is going to be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I think, again, you saw in the Pac-12 tournament against Oregon, like Arizona can lose almost, they can lose to teams they're not supposed to lose to or that are supposedly so much better than. So it's hard to see even in their recent performances and say, oh, that's a Final Four team. Like I don't have that confidence in them. I've seen them play in person and lose to Washington State, right? Like they turn the ball over, and I think I get the metrics absolutely. I've seen them play tough teams and not handle it well and try to, Caleb Love tries to play superhero. And honestly, isn't that different than the point guard that transferred last year? What's his name? Kerr Kriisa, who would take over and just shoot these ridiculous threes, which, when you hit them, could be a momentum changer. When you miss them, that's how you lose to lesser competition.
Yeah. Also, if it is a Dayton-Arizona matchup, completely different tempos. Dayton's going to play super slow, and Arizona's going to try and speed it up. Going to be a very, very weird game. So you're going to have Dayton going all the way to playing North Carolina.
I do, yeah.
That's
a mistake, right?
No, I mean, not at all. Not at all. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in my I'm not sure what I'm going to do in my main bracket for the podcast here. I'll have the link in the episode description to join. I'm just so tempted to go with the metrics that say Arizona should advance, but we've said before, when the main primary ball handler, Caleb Love, goes cold, that's when there's a problem. However, how important is his impact going to the basket and stuff like that, or his defense? I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, it's huge. If he drives to the basket and gets fouled 70% of the time, that should be their offense, but that's not always what they do, right? They have Ballo, who they should be able to dump stuff down to, but he doesn't have the greatest hands.
He's not the best shooter either. You'd expect a much higher shooting percentage, really. Much lower than. So it's some weird things despite the numbers, but perhaps the Pac-12, maybe there's something about, I don't know. It's really weird. It's really weird. So I don't have any queries with your decision. I've penned Nevada in, I've penned New Mexico, I've penned Grand Canyon. So I've looked at different things. So very interesting. Dayton over North Carolina though, or
no.
Okay. So you would have to.
Oh, actually I do, but I'm very now I'm questioning everything. Because now, I mean, I don't know. You look at that Baylor Dayton game too, and I'm like, I don't know. Like,
the defense is not good for Baylor. They could certainly advance. The only team with well-rounded metrics and quality competition is Arizona. That's the problem in the bottom of this bracket and going through. But sometimes it's just picking, who you think will come out on top. You can't always go by the metrics. So it could be Dayton.
Yep, I've got them in the Final Four. So you're welcome, Flyers fans.
All right, so let's go with a fun one here. The number 1 seed up here in the East is UConn. The lowest, the 2 seed is Iowa State, who, according to the committee, is the lowest ranked number 2 seed. But arguably, to a lot of folks, including me, they should have been in the competition for one. You've got 2 former Final Four teams in FAU. Two former Final Four teams from last year in FAU and San Diego State in the bracket. You've got another team with the metrics love in Auburn, BYU, who in the back half of the year slid out, but was in the top 20 in offensive defensive efficiency for a long time. You've got Illinois, who was second in the Big Ten and a very good team. You've got you've got a lot of smaller schools who are decent. UAB isn't that bad. Morehead State, Drake. So this is a hell of a bracket here that they gave UConn, but you're going to put them in over Stenson, I assume. Florida Atlantic. Yes. Okay, Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. Do you have any strong Northwestern feelings, or are we going to go with the veteran Florida Atlantic team that returns a bunch of players from last season to advance?
What, are you writing off Boo Buie?
I would never write off Boo Buie. I just thought Northwestern looked particularly impressive a number of times this year. And Florida Atlantic, they had their struggles in a middling conference, really.
No, I have Northwestern here. I just need them to win in the tournament. The poor Cats. Cardiac Cats. I think they win this. Yeah, who did FAU? FAU had quite the schedule this year, didn't they?
Yes, Florida Atlantic's schedule. So they did open against Loyola Chicago, which is a good A10 team. Then they played. They did have Butler in there, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech. They lost to Bryant early, which was the weird telling sign that they had problems. They did play Charleston as well. Beat Charleston. They lost to Illinois. They beat St. Bonaventure. They had probably the best game of the year in Arizona in double overtime.
Yep, I remember that now. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so again, I think that's more of an example of Arizona dropping a game they shouldn't have. But I digress. Yeah, and then losing to Memphis and beating Memphis. So what is this FAU team? I really don't know.
Yeah. Janelle Davis is still there, shooting 42% from 3. Very effective player for them. Northwestern, though, it's a really good offensive team. Like, really good. They don't turn the ball over. I shouldn't say really good. A really good 3-point shooting team, I should say. They don't turn the ball over. Defensive metrics aren't as strong, but I mean, both these teams have their flaws. That's why they're in the 8-9 slot, and neither one's going to beat Connecticut. But I leaning with the Cats as well, personally.
Let's go. Go Cats.
We're good to pen UConn and its team full of future NBA talent onwards, I think.
Yes.
Number 5, San Diego State. Number 12, University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Dragon things. San Diego State and UAB. UAB, not a bad little squad. San Diego State, again, crushing it out of the Mountain West. A lot of respect given to that team. Very good defensively, yet again. Possibly they could go on a run is all relative, but possibly they could advance for a couple rounds here, make it to the second weekend at least. Top 10 defense. Not quite the metrics of last year, I don't believe, but certainly well within the top 100 and a lot of meaningful metrics. Offensively, they're pretty good as well. They don't shoot the 3 well. I note that. They do not shoot the 3 well at all. They took a lot of losses in the regular season to the better teams: New Mexico, Boise State, Colorado State, Nevada, Utah State, UNLV, Boise State again, New Mexico in the tournament, Grand Canyon in the non-conference, BYU in the non-conference. Hard to win games when you're losing so many.
Yeah, they don't have very many good wins is the problem.
It's problematic. Defensive Player of the Year, was it Lamont Butler that was Defensive Player of the Year in the Mountain West? Trying to match the names of the awards now. I don't have it in front of me. Point is, defense is pretty good. Offense is okay. And not sure about actual results on the court. UAB Blazers could certainly pull an upset, winning there in the, let's see, where are they at? They're in American Conference now. They're no longer the Conference USA. 23-11. Defensive metrics aren't particularly great. Offensively, they're not a great shooting team. They're offensive. They rebound offensively. Second chance points. They don't have a ton of size, but they've got some meaningful wins. They beat Drake. They beat Maryland. They beat Memphis. I don't know. It seems easy to pick San Diego State, which is certainly my lean, but UAB, I don't know. They don't shoot the three particularly well either, but we're just going to get a lot of playing in the inside the 3-point line, I think, for this game for the most part.
Yeah, this will probably be a pretty ugly game. It also seems like the kind of game that San Diego State should win, but because it will be a kind of defensive battle, it's the one that's how you get upset, right? Is if UAB makes a couple shots, metrics don't tell everything. They make a couple shots and game's a lot closer and more uncomfortable than you want it to be. But I do think San Diego State wins this game.
Number 4, Auburn. Number 13, Yale. The metrics love Auburn. They have all season, yet there's been doubt at how good the Tigers really are. And the Ivy League typically puts some pretty good competition out, even if they're not winning games, whether it's Yale or Princeton or Cornell. But this year it's Yale. Princeton could have been an at-large team, really didn't quite come close enough. The competition level just wasn't there. Still a good team. But Yale managed to steal the bid. They beat Brown in the final of the conference tournament. Had to hit it, I think it was a buzzer beater, real close to it in order to make it in. Brown would have been like 3 or 4 games under 500. So thank goodness they did that. They're ranked as a top 100 team. The Bulldogs are top 100 offensive and defensive metrics for the most part. And not a lot of big games like at all on the conference or on the schedule to go by. Not a good free throw shooting team. And then Auburn, of course, the defense is top 10 in just all over the place. And the offense isn't too bad either. So they've managed to get a few wins. Alabama, Indiana. Yeah, I guess that's it. That's one of the problems why they're looked at as problematic.
Yeah, you want to say this is the kind of upset you want to see, right, from an Ivy League like Yale did last year, or I guess Princeton, right, to Arizona. But I don't see it here. Yale doesn't have the kind of quality competition even that Auburn's playing, even though Auburn doesn't have any real great wins, right? They beat Alabama. They beat Mississippi State twice. Yeah, I'm not sold on Auburn either, but I do think they win this game fairly handily, unless, Ivy League do Ivy League things and pull off the upset. I wouldn't be surprised just because I don't like Auburn, but I do think they handle this.
I like how a lot of your decisions are, I don't like this team.
Got to go with your gut.
Auburn and San Diego State then is going to be a defensive battle. And these are the kind of games that San Diego State was sneaking in last year in the tournament, sneakily winning. Now Auburn, now its losses are Baylor, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi State, who wasn't a bad team this year, and Appalachian State wasn't too bad either. So it's not losing any games that it shouldn't per se. But is there? I mean, this is a 4-5 matchup. So who's gonna match up with UConn? Are we gonna get two teams that the metrics really like, in UConn and Auburn, or San Diego State?
I think so. I think San Diego State just doesn't have the offense that they had last year. Losing, oh God, what's his name to Houston, right? And
Cryer.
Yep.
No. Yep.
No. Yeah.
No.
One of them. Sneed.
Sneed. Yeah.
One of them. Whatever. that's a problem. I think it's just not the same team that we saw last year, and I think Auburn is just a bit more well-rounded, and they'll be able to pull off that game.
So the winner will get UConn. Let's spend 1 second on the Huskies, who are 31-3. They have some monsters. Tristan Newton is a 6'5" senior guard, very good. Stephen Castle's a freshman, 6'6", probably a one and done. Not a great 3-point shooter, but still everything you'd want in a guard who's going to the NBA next year. That number will start to come up. They've got some good size. Alex Carabin, 6'8", wing. Cam Spencer, 6'4", guard. They're 30th in 3-point percentage, 6th in 2-point percentage, number 1 in adjusted offensive efficiency, 6th in effective field goal percentage. Just a good team all up and down offensive metrics. They generally play quite slow. Defensively, effective field goal percentage is top 10, 2-point percentage, adjusted offensive efficiency. I guess I need a faster acronym for that. 3-point percentage is a little bit lower, but in saying that, they hold opponents under 32% generally. And of course, we can't forget the big man, Donovan Klingen, the 7'2" center that really makes things roll. He did miss a little time. I think that's the loss to Seton Hall, which is one of the 3 losses. He was out for that game. That one they lost by 15 on the road. Other than that, 4-point loss to Kansas and a tough blowout loss to Creighton when they really got cooking. 3 losses, though. Good on both sides of the ball. Lots of good metrics. I mean, players go to the NBA, good college players, good guard play, good big play, healthy. Dan Hurley's got another great squad. They've improved all 4 years that he's been here. And the Huskies.
I mean, they win how you'd want them to win, right? A lot of those games are never even in doubt. You know, they're that good. They destroy most of their opponents. I mean, that actually the game with St. John's was a lot closer than you thought it was, but it doesn't feel like it because Connecticut is just they're so good. You're just waiting for them to just take over the game.
Yeah. They don't necessarily have they have pretty good size. If Auburn's able to, I want to say, get clean and foul trouble or something like that, perhaps they have the defense to hang around. But it's just, I mean, you're not picking it. You're watching it.
Yep.
The bottom half of the bracket. Let's move to number 6 BYU and number 11 Duquesne. So I was talking myself into some Duquesne stuff a little bit, but really, I mean, I can't.
I think BYU's a solid squad, right?
Yes.
I think that's why it's hard. If there was a different 6 seed, maybe. But BYU's not bad.
Duquesne's got some pretty good defensive numbers, metrics. But again, when you're in the A10 that struggled this year and you're not in the upper crust of that, and your offense is questionable, and you don't really force turnovers, Duquesne doesn't force turnovers, then it's kind of problematic. But they could hang in here. BYU's really good on both sides of the ball, quite frankly. They could advance to the Sweet 16. Let's tackle that. So Illinois, Morehead State, the 3-14 is actually going to be good as well. I really like Illinois, but man, their defense just isn't good.
It's not
good.
You know who is good? Terrence
Morehead?
Shanahan or whatever his name is.
That one guy.
I mean, that one guy, I mean, just watching him over the past couple of weeks just takes over the game. And it's not like people don't know about him. And he just continues to dominate draw fouls and ones, hits, 3-pointers from the logo, and then is actually a pretty good passer from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Getting his teammates involved. So, I mean, if he keeps playing like that, I've got Illinois going a little ways here.
Yeah, Morehead State is pretty good defensively. 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, top 50 in the country. They shoot from the 2 pretty effectively. Another team that plays super slow. Illinois plays a lot faster. 3rd in adjusted offensive efficiency. They shoot the 2 pretty well, and they defend the 2 pretty well. They do not force turnovers, which is kind of problematic. The best wins for Morehead State, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. They're non-existent. Losses to Alabama, Purdue, big time, Indiana, and a few conference as well. They could pull an upset. I'm interested to see how this game goes, personally. Again, contrasting styles. Illinois, I think, is going to be exposed by BYU, personally. I do have them winning in the first round. So the 3-6 would be Illinois and BYU. You have Illinois. Would you have Illinois advancing here?
I do, and I just think, for the same reason with BYU as with Morehead State, I don't know who's going to guard Terrence. And, I mean, he'll rebound the ball and be at the other end of the court drawing a foul and putting it in the bucket. So I don't know. Yeah, I get the defense is suspect. I'm just not sure how much that matters when you have a player like that. And I think he's been heating up. Like, he's just been getting better towards the end of the year. So I think Illinois is hot. I think they're a good team, and I think it'd be difficult to see them not. It would have to be a completely different team for me to not believe they wouldn't beat BYU.
Yeah, this is kind of. I'm more looking for, where is Illinois going to fall because of some of those defensive metrics, but they're not as bad as they were earlier in the season. I mean, the problem is, like, they're 213th in 3-point defense at 34, just over 34% a clip. Overall, that's not a dumpster fire, though, not forcing turnovers. Like, they're one of the worst in the country. But overall, the defense, when you're talking defense in the very broad terms, it's not bad. So I can see that. I will probably pick Illinois to advance in my bracket as well. The bottom section, number 7, Washington State, and number 10, Drake, and then number 2, Iowa State, and number 15, South Dakota State. Let's tackle that real quick. Again, Iowa State has some phenomenal defensive metrics. South Dakota State has been a top 3-point shooting team in the country for several years. Last year, they took a little dip. They're back up there again. They're just not going to, if Iowa State is able, even if Iowa State's, a number of threes are given up, I think that they're going to beat South Dakota State. However, almost every year, I think there's a streak going. I didn't quite pull the number. A 2's taken down to 15. This could be it. I don't think it's going to be St. Peter's over Tennessee or Long Beach State over Arizona. Western Kentucky, Marquette, maybe. But San Diego or South Dakota State over Iowa State, as much as I like Iowa State, South Dakota State shooting as well as they do from 3, and I'll get that pulled up here if you have any thoughts. That could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, so as much as I kind of explained the way I feel about Creighton and, Marquette, really, I guess, as disappointment goes, Iowa State, right? Iowa State is the epitome of that, which is like the team that you always want to come together to do something. They're the Cyclones, right? They're made up of transfers and all this stuff, and they never get it done. I was very impressed with their win over, I don't know, can I even say that? Was I that impressed? I put a lot of money on it. I knew they were going to beat Houston. So, I would think more, if you're going to do 215 for an upset, I think it would be Western Kentucky over Marquette. I think Iowa State I think Iowa State's going to win this. That was a really gutty win against Houston, and Houston was playing pretty well. So I have Iowa State winning this. I have Iowa State playing pretty well. My love for Illinois right now is a little. Oh, I can't believe I said that out loud. As a Michigan fan that hasn't beaten Illinois in like 5 years, I was just very impressed watching Illinois. So I've got Iowa State ending up playing Illinois.
Okay. Yeah. Iowa State's number 1 adjusted defense, 28th effective field goal defense, number 2 turnover percentage. They turn the ball over. Forced turnovers, I should say. Top 50 3-point percentage defense, 2-point percentage defense, top 5 in forcing turnovers and steals. The offensive side is the top 100 in most statistics. They're actually just outside the top 100 in 3-point shooting and 2-point shooting, which is why they lose sometimes. Not dissimilar to a lot of other teams like Houston and the like. Some of the problems they encounter. South Dakota State is 19th in effective field goal percentage. They're actually 18th in 2-point percentage. They're 50th in 3-point percentage, though. I was a little off in that approximation. They were like number 1 2 years ago and number 2 3 years ago, something like that. So it's maybe an easier pick than intended, or than anticipated, I should say.
I mean, who doesn't love the Jackrabbits? Like, why would you love against them?
I know. It'd just be nice if they'd win a game. They keep winning their conference there. It'd be nice if they would win a game in the tournament.
I mean, one of their notable wins is the St. Thomas, Minnesota Tommies. So
I love that. That's phenomenal.
By 1 point, and then again by 10 points. So, take that as you will.
Have you watched much Washington State or Drake? Both teams tucked just inside the top 50.
Yep, I've seen Washington State. I was very impressed by them when I saw them in person. Really handle the atmosphere of the McHale Center here in Tucson and beat Arizona right at home. And then again, how much of that is a function of Arizona just not hitting threes. But I think they are a very impressive team. I don't see that. I don't know much about Drake, so if there's a surprise in Drake that would make me rethink what's happening or what I've seen with Washington State, let me know.
They're a good offensive team. They are not real bad defensively. I mean, all things considered, they're not too bad. They're a decent 3-point shooting defense. They steal at an okay rate. First turnovers at a decent rate. They don't have like the wins, of course. I mean, but they didn't have the opportunity either for any big wins. They split with Indiana State, and there's not a ton here. I believe they have the 6th highest scoring kid in the country. Is it Tucker DeVries? I think Tucker DeVries is the kid. It's cycling through so many names. So offense is the calling card. They're not bad defensively, but again, there's no through lines in quality of competition. So there was a possibility if they didn't get the auto bid and Indiana State got the auto bid from the Missouri Valley that they would have been an at-large. Of course, we're now seeing the reverse of that, and Indiana State did not get the at-large. So perhaps that wouldn't have happened. Washington State, again, I had them ranked in the top 40 last year. But sometimes I'm a year ahead on these things. And they play quite slow. Drake is about middle of the road. Drake's going to be a favorite to upset, but I just don't quite see that here. I'm trying to get the name of their Tucker DeVries is their leading scorer, 21 points per game, 36% 3-point percentage rate. But they just don't have enough, I don't think, personally.
Yeah, I agree. Washington State's got some pretty good big men that can match up with Drake, and then their guards are good, and they make plays and they shoot well. They got good strokes from what I've seen in person. I got them winning that, and I would love to be able to say they would beat Iowa State, but I think, I mean, maybe I'm putting a lot of credit into Iowa State for hammering Houston, but I can't pick Washington State to upset Iowa State, even though I'd like to.
I just like Iowa State's defense a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. Again, best in the country. This is a team that went 18-0 at home this year. 2 years ago, when TJ Olsenberg came in, like the transfer portal was brand new and everyone hit the transfer portal. You had 2/3 of the roster turnover, and like you said, brought in a bunch of new kids. It's taken a couple of years to get back to this point, period. And they're just extremely talented, and they have a number of guys. I have a couple seniors in here, Trey King, Curtis Jones, but they have a youth infusion as well. So, yeah, I think they're easy to pencil through. So, are you leaning offense with Illinois, defense with Iowa State then in the Sweet 16?
Yeah, this one's a toss-up for me. I think Iowa State could definitely slow down Illinois and make it a really grindy game, which Illinois would not like, and could pull off that win. But I actually have Illinois going here to meet UConn. I think more likely Iowa State wins this, and you get the offensive juggernaut of UConn versus the immovable object of Iowa State's defense. But that's not what I picked. So,
yeah, I think Iowa State's my lean too. I still wonder if BYU could make. I don't know, any of those teams I thought could be dark horse teams before the bracket came out, as far as making it to at least the Sweet 16, maybe Elite 8. Because they're all clumped together here, who knows, right? But another 1 and 2 here we've got matched up. UConn, and again, we didn't really define what we're doing. We are, at least for our reference, looking at a bracket. We agree on most things, so we're going to do our brackets separately, but for the most part, we're agreeing. So between UConn and Iowa State, UConn,
they are the unstoppable force. It's really hard to see any flaws with them when they play. They are clearly the best team.
So your Final Four at the moment is Houston and Purdue on one side, and then you've got UConn and probably Dayton on the other. I've had a problem settling on things. I don't even like those numbers. I don't know. I've had Houston, I've had Marquette in Purdue, and then UConn and Arizona. I've been all over the board. So I've not had Dayton though. But
I don't know. That's just like everybody wants to be able to pick the Cinderella, right? It's the Flyers' time.
Yeah. And so here's the problem with, you like to pick off to try and win your bracket, but at the same time, the point values go up. And I've thought about adjusting point values at some point, because then if you're just wrong, if you don't pick UConn like a good chunk of the field to win the national championship and you're wrong, you're out like 32 points, which is significant. So you almost have to go against the grain to some point and pick some of the smaller ones correctly. So,
it's the same thing here. Like if I was playing in East Lansing, I would pick against Michigan State. In Arizona, if I'm submitting brackets against other people from Arizona, I'm going to pick against Arizona because they're all going to pick them to go, a lot farther. And I have a lot better chance to win the pool if I have them lose earlier.
Yes. unless you think they're going to win the championship, right?
Which they're not, so I'm not worried about that.
Right. But if you thought they were going to win the championship, then you're giving up well, let's say they even make it to the Elite Eight. If you pick them to lose in a round of 2, that's 2 rounds of points you're giving up.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I'm gonna come back to the Dayton game. I will. I don't even know where they're playing, so I will look into that as well, right? Like, I don't even know where the site is. Arizona fans are going to travel pretty well. I think Dayton fans will too.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think so.
If they can turn it, if it's somewhere in the West and they turn it into a basically a home court advantage for Arizona, that might be hard for Dayton to win.
Yeah. How about Houston, Purdue, the 2 casual fans, these teams suck matchup?
I have Purdue here. I feel this is a bit of a toss-up as well. I think Purdue is closer to that complete team. Edey is really good at drawing fouls. I think Houston gets away with a lot of fouls and physical defense. And that game could almost come down to how that game is called, right? Because if you think that Edey's maybe gotten some preferential treatment in the Big Ten, and he maybe stops getting that because he's a giant, right? So like, what is a foul on him? Is it it's certainly not putting 2 hands on him like it is most other players, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? And I just think Purdue has a better offense that can put some points up on Houston. I don't know that Houston's offense can keep up against Purdue's defense. That's kind of how I see that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've gone back and forth. Houston, it's hard to pick to advance sometimes, just because their offense occasionally dies in the corner. That being said, they have one of the best records in the country. They've played the most difficult conference in the country.
They've also lost some depth along the way, right? Like, they've lost players. And at what point does that depth become an issue? Has it yet? I don't know. Is that due to something else? I'm not really sure. They got hammered against Iowa State. So is that a depth issue because people have been injured, or, So I have trouble picking them. And you could say recency bias and all that, sure. But yeah, I do see Purdue as the more complete, well-rounded team than Houston.
Yeah, Ramon Walker, knee out, 24 games played. Terrence, I can't pronounce that name. Achilles out. Joseph Tugler, hell of a name, out as well with a foot injury. Bench contributions, but a lot of games played and a lot of depth. So that's good point bringing that up. So Purdue, man, Klingen and Edey in the national championship. Wouldn't that be a hell of a matchup at the center position?
Yep.
And again, this could again go either way. UConn's reloaded. They've got a freshman star on their team. Purdue's got some sophomore guards because they're freshmen last year. You've got a sophomore center and a senior center for UConn and then Purdue respectively. So could go either way. Veteran coaches, really. Painter's been there a lot longer, obviously, at Purdue.
I think it'll be a good game, or at least better than the last year, right? Last year, UConn set the record for beating every team by double digits, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't like you could just bet on them to cover every game and you would make money. And I don't think that will be the case in this championship game. I think it'll be closer, but I do think UConn gets the back-to-back, which we haven't had in how long?
07. Was it Florida? There's somebody else. I think it was Florida. So yeah.
And it's strange because you don't think about UConn a lot, I feel like, in the past 10 years, but how many championships have they won? Like, a lot. Like, they are.
Shabazz Napier, Kemba Walker, and there was connective tissue because Shabazz was a freshman when Kemba won it. neither one was super great throughout their entire career. Kemba got hot to the legendary Big East tournament run. Still watch highlights of that to get pumped up. And Shabazz Napier, of course, took, I think it was a 7-seed team to do the same. Phenomenal. Just good stories in their runs.
Even more story, like, what was it, Shabazz or Kemba who was talking about, not being able to have enough money to like eat a meal or something like that.
Yeah.
And then won a championship game. And now we live in this world where everybody's getting NIL money, right? It has a base salary enough, like that's not a problem anymore, right? And it's a different world, but UConn is still winning.
Still winning, baby. All right. So that's it. We did a bracket thing. I'll put the link in the description. I'm back after a month. We'll bring Elliot on more. Actually, we'll probably be on capping the rounds.
Back again.
Back again, baby. Thanks. This is the Michael Welch podcast. This is the Brothers Welch podcast on the Mike Welch podcast. All right. Thanks. That's long. All right. Long one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings. I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beater turn into a Bentley. See I'm stunned, so I'm all I'm thinking, please don't tell me. Oh boy, she was seeing